Go ahead and.
All right.
There we go.
Welcome, everyone. We welcome you to UVU's State of the University Address 2017. I'm Jeff Olson. I'm the Senior Vice President of Academic Affairs, and I have the privilege of introducing President Holland. I did a lot of background research to get ready for this. We talk a lot about STEM and how important STEM is, and too often we leave out the arts and the importance of the arts in preparing people for success. Well, I found out that President Holland has a background in dance.
Really?
That in fact, in high school, he once performed a really mean hula in a grass skirt and little else. That is probably why he has been so successful at UVU, so just to let you know. No, we really are fortunate to have Matthew Holland as our university president. I don't know how many of you know, but Education Dive, which is a newsletter that monitors developments in education, named President Holland the Executive of the Year last year, 2016. And the other nominees were John Hennessy, who was the president of Stanford University for decades, and other illustrious leaders in higher education. During the time that he's been at Utah Valley University, enrollment has gone up from 28,765 to 34,978. Degrees awarded from 3,441 to 5,409. Degree programs, we have added 29 bachelor's degrees from 54 to 83, 6 master's degrees from 2 to 8. We have broken ground or dedicated a science building, We Care Center, Student Life and Wellness Building, Classroom Building, the Nellesen Autism Center, NUVI Basketball Center, and the Noorda Arts Building. Fundraising in 2009 was $2,598,000. This last year in what was received was $12,763,000, so 4 or 5 time increase in the amount of money that's been raised. And the visibility and reputation of UVU, which has been strong, has just continued to grow. This last year we celebrated a wonderful 75th anniversary. We're going to hear about the events of that year and then also, I think, some insights into what might be coming for UVU. So let me turn the time over to President Holland.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Jeff. After that, you can keep your job for another year. It's my pleasure to be with you today. This is my one chance to speak to everybody, really. During the year, we have other moments with students and with faculty and with staff, but this is a chance for us to come together as a community and talk about how things are going and where we're headed. And it's been an outstanding year, a celebratory year. Here we are cutting our birthday cake, if you will, our anniversary cake to kick off our 75th anniversary, led by our outstanding student body president. And I'm so grateful to work with him and all of our student leaders here at Utah Valley University. And what are we celebrating? Well, we're celebrating this humble beginning of ours, 1941. The original Utah Valley University right there, the old barracks of the Civilian Conservation Corps and the old Provo Fairgrounds. And so we begin with our first seal, the Central Utah Vocational School of 1941. Small little operation built to help get people out of the Depression and to support the war effort. And wasn't clear by any means if it was going to succeed, but it did and lasted for 2 decades, which was probably 19 years longer than anyone originally assumed, and then becomes a trade and technical institute in 1963 for another seal, a third seal, if you will, the Utah Technical College, 1967. In 1987, it becomes Utah Valley Community College, and not long after that moves right into a 4-year institution with some 4-year programs as Utah Valley State College, and then here we are at our 6th seal as Utah Valley University, which we became in 2008. I arrived at 2009. Of course, one of the questions is, should we at some point develop a 7th seal? Tempting, and I've thought about some options. This is one. Something that truly would usher in the apocalypse with the 4 horsemen, death, plague, famine, and war. Or maybe something very much like unto it, but a slightly academic to it. We'll stick with our final seal. No one needs to be worried about that. We're quite comfortable with who we are moving forward. So, hard to believe a year has gone by since we've been here in this auditorium talking together, and that really it was a year ago from this State of the University Today that we launched the celebration, formally launched the celebration of our 75th anniversary, and it started, I think, appropriately by honoring our 2 great founders. Wilson Sorensen, who has historically been talked a lot about on this campus, and who, as you may recall, it was my pleasure to meet just weeks before he passed away and before I assumed office here. That was a sweet and treasured moment. His 36 years of legacy of really building this institution out of nothing into something that has lasted and grown and had such an impact on this valley. But I thought it was important not to forget Hiram Johnson, really our first founder, and who, under enormous physical and social and political pressures, took on the responsibility of launching this thing with very little money and a kind of a divisive community about whether we should even have the program. Cost him his health, even cost him his job. And I will forever be grateful for Hiram, as I hope and trust that we all will be. So we moved from that moment of acknowledgement on into our spring appreciation banquet, where we were able to gather every living president of this institution, including the two who served as interim president. Had a wonderful evening with them, honoring them, their leadership and the stages they helped take us through during their time at the helm. And of course, capped off the evening with a fantastic Eric Dowdell puzzle, still available for purchase in our bookstore today. So if you don't have one, go get one. Then I think we did a marvelous job wrapping the campus. It was fun to see those things come up and be spread all around and kind of visually underscore the significance of this year and what we're doing. Kudos to Cam Martin and his shop and our marketing folks for getting that done and doing it so effectively and efficiently. And then we started an aggressive series of new additions to the campus as part of our 75th year. Things like breaking the ground for the Nellesen Autism building, a building entirely funded by private donations. Not just the building of it, but the operation of it is coming entirely from privately raised funds. This is the kinds of things that can happen when we do make a concerted effort to reach out to the community, provide programs that they're supportive of, work with them in designing them. And now we've got a whole new school, if you will, certainly an educational enterprise to help with one of the most pressing issues in our community today. And there's the status picture of where that is. We hope to be cutting the ribbon on that later this spring or this summer and moving in shortly thereafter and making a difference in the lives of those on the spectrum, their parents, teachers who will encounter them, first responders who will deal with them in crisis situation, public policy makers, all I think will benefit from that institution. Our NUVI basketball facility we broke the ground for, and here's the update picture on that. We will be only the second team in the WAC to have a basketball practice facility. We think it'll be give us another decisive recruiting advantage, as if we need another advantage beyond Mark Pope himself when it comes to recruiting. But we're excited what that will do to free up space in the UCCU Center and what it will do for our team. And from an infrastructure point of view, probably the most exciting thing was the groundbreaking we did for the Noorda Center for the Performing Arts, where we in December, where we named it for the Noordas, who made a $9 million donation to help build this building. That's the final rendering of it. We're underway with it, and it will provide a new concert hall, a new proscenium theater, a new dance recital hall, dozens of practice and performance spaces for our musicians and vocalists. It'll be a stunning new facility and will obviously have be a huge boon to our School of the Arts, but will be, I think, something that will allow for wonderful gatherings, if you will, for many other aspects of our campus. So that was our groundbreaking. Probably our most spectacular groundbreaking was me with Linda Macon, a Tonka trunk, and a plastic shovel. This was the groundbreaking for the Pope Science Infill, a little mini building we're building. We are out of space in the Browning Administration Building, and so much of Linda's operation will move over into the infill between Pope Science and the environmental building, and so we look forward to getting that done soon. And then most recently, we cut the ribbon on the Rebecca D. Lockhart Arena. This was a very important and tender moment for me personally and for the institution. Becky Lockhart became a good friend over the years as I worked with her closely in the legislature, as you know, the first female Speaker of the House and a powerful advocate for Utah Valley University. Someone who could see what we were facing and championed our cause as firmly and strongly and aggressively as any legislator I met, helping us secure support for the classroom building and supporting our Center for Constitutional Studies and supporting the Women's Success Center and mentoring our students, and most significantly, the historic push to get equity funding for Utah Valley University to the tune of $21 million of new ongoing funds that have made all the difference in the world for us to live up to our university mission. As you know, 2 years ago, she contracted a rare disease and died relatively quickly. It was heartbreaking to all of us. We have named this arena in her honor, not because she was noted for her basketball prowess. I don't know that she ever played basketball in her life, but she was about the community, and this is more than an athletic arena. It is a gathering place. We will hold graduation here. We will hold civic moments here, guest speakers, funerals. Ever since the old Provo Tabernacle burned down years ago, this valley has not had a good 3,000-seat arena for lots of civic gatherings and engagements. We think this venue will become much like that moving into the future, and the family was absolutely thrilled and touched by the gesture of us doing that just a few weeks ago. It may seem a little mundane, but it's not. We recently were able to purchase at an unusually low rate a warehouse that's across the freeway from us here. And you may wonder why that's significant, and that's because our current warehouse was demonstrably too small and right in the middle of areas that are now expanding because of the growth of the School of the Arts and Computing and Technology. So this is kind of a twofer, if you will. We now get a bigger, more accessible space for our warehousing across the freeway, still accessible to the main campus, but it now frees up a space that will allow growth for the School of the Arts and Computing and Technology to expand. Well, that in and of itself would be quite a year compared to, say, other years we've had at this institution in terms of the building and the expansion. And again, some of that coming with support from the legislature, but a lot of it coming from outside support and from our own efficiencies and creativities as figuring out a way to make the most of this institution with the resources we have. Well, this fall we went into Founders Day. It was a campus-wide celebration to again remember our beginnings and tied that to our 1941 inception. Our scholarship ball this year had a focus on the 75th anniversary and had a record-setting attendance and a record-setting fundraising achievement, raising over $200,000 for our presidential scholars. And then as we really moved towards the end of the year, at least the calendar year, we were able to find a few ways to say thank you to all of you. All the things that we've accomplished as an institution, we've accomplished because of you, the folks sitting in this room, the folks listening online. It's you, the faculty and the staff, who daily are making the effort and the sacrifices necessary for us to live out this dream in our 75th year. And so everyone who wants one should have received this wonderfully done book of history on the institution. If you haven't gotten that, see Steve Anderson. Where's Steve at? Steve, where do we go for a book?
We have a table right outside with the books. We've run out. You can come by LC 217.
Wonderful. We also handed out $75 gift cards. Don't look to Steve for more of those. We've given them all out. We hope you got yours. But again, 75 small ways of saying thank you to you for all that you do. And then in light of the year and the turn of the calendar, able to do something we're not usually able to do, which is give you a full week off over the holidays. Those were a package of things that we thought through intentionally and purposely as a way in this special year to pay tribute to you and all that you do. So, of course, the most important thing that we can and should celebrate in a year like this is our student successes. I mean, buildings are great, and programs are great, and what we do for each other is great, but what we do for each other as employees is great. But our reason for being here, the core of our core at Utah Valley University is student success. And we had some wonderful student successes that we can speak to this year as part of our 75th anniversary. It started early on with our third year in the row running, winning the 2016 Skills USA National Championship. Our digital media students winning their first Emmy. Our Leadership Organizational Development Program being ranked #2 in the nation by Leadership Excellence magazine. Our culinary students winning effectively a national championship at the Federation National Champions Contest. Our PRSSA chapter being named the outstanding chapter of the year. Ameritrade TD did a nationwide contest for scholarships, very competitive, 12 slots. 4 of them went to UVU students. UPRSA students winning the Golden Spike Award Best of Show. Knowledge Bowl champions for our friends in financial counseling and planning education. Last year I reported that Tanner Whedon was our first Stanford Innovation Fellow in the state of Utah. Quite an accomplishment that the first came from UVU ahead of other institutions. This year, 5 students from UVU winning Stanford Innovation Fellows by the National Science Foundation. You will continue to see these things grow and grow. It's a stunning new start for our student body in that area. Santiago won first place in the Utah chapter for the Entrepreneurs Organization Global Student Entrepreneur Awards. And Li Kai-shing is not a UVU student, just for the record. But he is the wealthiest man in Hong Kong, and he has discovered UVU and has started to fund scholarships here. This year he's funded 15 scholarships. Just to give you an example, 2 of them support in community health, the Havey Health Initiative and the Rising Star Outreach. So again, this is indicative of the kinds of people, not even naturally necessarily connected to this institution, who are becoming aware of what we are achieving and wanting to invest in us. And we'll be happy to take Li Kai-shing as a student if he would like to someday. So. And then, of course, no record of student success would be complete without bragging about the accomplishments of our athletic teams. 4 conference championships, men's and women's cross country, women's soccer, men's baseball for starters. Then we had the men's soccer team win a WAC championship, achieving as high as 8th in the nation this year. Remarkable thing. We've got our fingers crossed for Coach Pope in basketball. I will just take opportunity to show a few exuberant reactions between me and the coach after one certain game this year. Don't worry, we replaced the tile in the ceilings. And then finally, I had an especially sweet moment just this last week where I went down to the Navajo Reservation in concert with Parker Fossen and Kyle Reyes and our friends in the School of Ed who have a student-teacher program on the Navajo Reservation. And we have several of our students, five I think of our students who are down there, embedded in the classrooms, working side by side with the teachers with these absolutely adorable and energetic students. They don't have a lot on the reservation, But what those students did show me is they have a thirst to learn. I was in those classrooms, I was talking to them, and they were so excited and so appreciative. They loved our UVU students. And the faculty that our UVU students were assigned to loved our UVU students. And the principal I talked to wept openly about what our program was doing to help inspire this next generation of Native American students. And we've already made arrangements for all of them to come to UVU. So anyway, what I saw there is student success begetting student success in a very powerful way, and I commend our friends in the School of Ed for what they did. Of course, there are so many more things we could talk about. We don't have time for it. I don't know all of them, and even if I did know them, again, we wouldn't be able to contain them in the hour that we've got here. But thank you to all of you students who are here. I'm gratified to see a number of students in the crowd today for working hard and succeeding. And I'm grateful to the faculty and the staff who are combining together to create these opportunities that allow you to succeed in the classroom, but also outside of the classroom, in the real world, where reality hits us and where people need help, and you're making a difference. And I'm so grateful for that. So we then come to November 18th, a truly historic day in the history of the institution. Began with a visit from Governor Herbert, who read a proclamation to a very large gathering of dignitaries and the press, saying, among other things, whereas with more than 35,000 students enrolled, numerous certificate to graduate programs, first-rate instructors, and so much more, there are few higher education institutions in the nation operating as successfully as UVU. We were honored by his visit and his support. We then went from that lunch into a moment of approving our master plan. And this is not just some ordinary old master plan that we get approved every couple of years. This is a vision of this institution for 40 or 50 years moving forward. So the map you see before you is the map of our campus, and this little elbow-shaped green thing directly above me, that's the property we sit on right now. The little smaller piece across the freeway is our West Campus. And then this other piece is the 200 acres on Vineyard that we picked up. As you know, we spent a fair amount of time thinking about, first of all, what we do with the Vineyard campus. That was the sort of original animating quest. We've got all this property. What are we going to do with it? At first we thought, well, maybe we start to put our performing arts building out there and our business building and start to spread things out. But as we gathered people together and sought input and did the analysis, we took a very different turn. We heard very clearly, and we thought about it, I think, soundly, to say it's going to be really important in the years ahead to keep our campus together intellectually, academically. Higher ed is getting too distributed, too siloed, and too atomized, if you will. And what we need, especially in this day and age when so much work is done on an interdisciplinary basis and on a collective group basis, we want to bring these things together. And that means keeping the disciplines together on the campus. And so we thought, well, that means we've got to make some different decisions with Vineyard. And we push out things like auxiliaries and athletics. And what academic programs we do put out there are specialty programs, programs that can be, if you will, standalone programs, where you're not trying to get from Vineyard back to the main campus a lot during the day. One of the things we heard from students is, please don't make it so that we have to take math at 8 o'clock at Vineyard and get back to the main campus at 9 o'clock for history. It's not a good use of our time. It's only one front runner stop away, but it's a lot of time and inefficiency. So in honor of the students, in honor of the faculty aspirations for interdisciplinarity, we made these decisions. And as a result, I want to show you now the finally approved master plan by the Board of Regents. So it begins here on the south end with a dynamic, what will be over time, a dynamic new athletic complex Now again, this will happen over years. This is not going to happen next year, but this is really long-range planning. We already have, as you can see in the center of the screen there circled, the intramural fields, but we will add turf fields. We will add the track and field. We'll add a sports stadium, and eventually even a new basketball arena out there, along with a student-athlete complex. So for conditioning and counseling, and really make that a dynamic new space. Over time, as you see on the north end, we'll even move the baseball fields and softball pitch out there. And so that will be an exciting time for us, because by virtue of doing that, we can reconfigure some things we do on the main campus. But before I come back to that, we'll also create a dynamic new community engagement park. We desperately need a conference center on this campus. We're running out of room at our business resource center. There are all sorts of opportunities. We hear about almost every week about potential public-private partnerships, but we don't really have a space to do that. So developing a business innovations building or a place to do some experimental things with the private sector, that could all happen right in that corner in those 3 or possibly 4 buildings. And then, of course, the academic space. Build on this interconnected model like we've got here on the main campus, but again, each building perhaps dedicated to these more specialty standalone programs, including building number 11, our friends from UFRA, where we will encourage them to relocate closer to us. So what does this mean for the main campus? It means that whereas we thought we were landlocked and facing our limits, we've got room to grow on this campus. It will start with a brand new business building. We have the largest business program in the state, and it's something whose time has come. We'll then shift to a building for computing and technology and on that east side of campus there. And then finally, we will build a new building immediately west of the library, building number 3, that currently we envision as a new home for the School of Education. And yeah, you can whoop it up about that. I don't mind that. So, now, there are a couple things exciting about that. One is it brings the School of Ed within the ring road, if you will, closer into the main part of campus. But it also starts the march of a set of buildings along that side and on the north of it that will create a beautiful new promenade, a new entrance, a new face to the campus, if you will. And once that's built out, we will be in a position, because we will have over time moved off some of the auxiliaries and athletic facilities, we will be able to create a second promenade that runs north and south and create a whole new gleaming southwestern edge to our campus there moving forward. Well, that opens up all sorts of possibilities that we didn't think existed before, which is vital for an institution as young and ambitious and growth-oriented as we are. Now, to be able to do this, we're going to have to make some changes in our infrastructure and the way we go about our daily life. For starters, we'll need a new interchange at 8th South. This is already a priority for UDOT. We're going to ask them to move that up on their priority list. We're advocating for a new off-ramp from I-15 going north that will tunnel right into campus, if you will. And then most immediately, we'll be pushing for a new pedestrian overpass. Now, this does lots of things for us. First of all, it connects our west campus with our east campus, again, getting that greater level of intellectual and academic connectedness. It takes advantage of the intermodal hub station, which is right there. So Front Runner, Bus Rapid Transit will all be interacting through there, perhaps light rail someday, bringing people to that central location and giving them an easy access onto campus. And as you can see, we've marked what's right now sort of undeveloped acreage down there as the future home of high-density student housing. We'll create a very dynamic student educational atmosphere, if you will, with lots and lots of student housing, with ties to that pedestrian path, making it effectively like we've got on-campus housing moving forward. Yeah, we'll take another woo-hoo, I heard it. Okay. Anyway, I'll say a little bit more about the business building in just a moment, but for now, that's our master plan. That's our vision moving forward. And that was enthusiastically approved by our regents and our trustees, and we're excited about the future moving forward. So, the other thing that we did was unveil these stunning Roots of Knowledge windows. I want to take this chance because we did this late on kind of Thanksgiving, the weekend going into Thanksgiving. Not everyone was able to participate in this. There's a great history to these windows, and this is my chance to share this with the broader university public. So what you see before you is a scroll that was rolled out to me a few months after I was in office. It came from Tom Holdman. He's a local and very talented stained glass artist who, by the way, got his start at this institution in our art programs, which is where he first really started to discover the extent of his artistic gift in general and the medium of stained glass. So he said that what he wanted to do was create the history of knowledge and the written word in stained glass and put it in our library, specifically on the corner of our library right there. So he wanted to take those 14 or 15 panels and, again, put it in the library there. And my immediate reaction was one of great enthusiasm. I love the idea of taking this ancient art form and channeling it into something that would be appropriate for a modern secular university. I love the idea of sprucing up our library with these images that would inspire inquiry and study of the high points of our past when it comes to knowledge and human understanding. But I said, you know, Tom, the only challenge I see with this is it's got to be bigger. The story of knowledge in the written word is bigger than 14 or 15 panes. As you can see, each pane kind of reflects a single thinker or single story. So I said, could you make it bigger? And he said, I've never been asked to make a project bigger. I'm happy to go do that. So he went off. 7 months went by. I didn't hear from him. And I thought, well, he's given up. Too big a challenge. Then 8 months came around. He made an appointment to come and see me, and he rolled this out. All done on this gigantic poster paper with a number 2 pencil. And he said, would something like this work? Like, yeah, I think that'll work. I was blown away, absolutely. I said, now not to just toy with you, Tom, but I have one more concern. So, yeah, this is bigger. If you can do this over time, we're going to have to find a new spot for your windows, but I think this looks great. But can you make this look as good in colored glass as it looks here in charcoal pencil? Well, he came back later with those 12 panes, and again, sort of knocked me off my chair. He is a remarkably gifted talent with both vision and an artistic flair that's just outstanding. And so we went to work on this, and we did it as a collaboration. One of the things Tom and I both agreed is that this needed to be inclusive. It couldn't be a single interpretive view of history from a certain ideology, a certain race, a certain geography. It had to bring in the world. And to do that, he would need the experts of this institution, our faculty and our students. So 26 faculty and staff, over 300 students went to work on doing the drawing, the design, the research, the installation, the publicity. And then this project turned into 26 panes from A to Z. So you can think about the symbolism of that for the history of knowledge. And we found a new home, I think an absolutely perfect home in this spot in the library that today looks as if it was made for those windows. And then we unveiled it on November 18th to lots of gasps and oohs and ahs. Very gratifying moment for the students and the faculty and the Holdmans and all who worked on the project. We were really taken with the press that we had as a result of this. Multiple coverages in the Daily Herald, opinion section, front page of the paper, multiple stories in Utah Valley Magazine, coverage in the Salt Lake Tribune, Deseret News, similarly, front page coverage and editorial coverage, but even national and international press This was a big piece done by CNN that called it spectacular, inspired, excellent, inspirational, wonder, tour de force. And then this phrase that I love, at a time when global politics is increasingly divided and the rest of the world looks on with some skepticism at America's current choices, this is a work which embodies the nation's best qualities: excellence, entrepreneurship, ambition, and optimism. Well, from that, we started to get not only attention, national and international attention about our windows, but about our mission. As people came to inquire about the windows, they started to ask about what was happening at UVU. And we were able to tell them about what we're doing with our core themes. That we have this theme of being inclusive, where we are committed to open admissions, keeping tuition low, active outreach to underserved populations. And as a result, we're showing progress in things like 108% increase in students of color since 2009. Students working significant hours, married, older, and as a result, many of them part-time, almost half part-time. And then this, most significantly, 38% of our students first generation, here because they feel welcomed and supported and they're succeeding. In addition, though, to being inclusive, we are this serious institution of higher learning, significant investments in faculty. For the first time this year, crossing that threshold of 55% of our faculty being full-time salaried faculty, a goal that we've had since we were clear back in the early 2000s, a goal set for us to become a university, but hasn't happened until this year. We've enhanced our academic culture with structured enrollment and presidential lecture series and freshman convocations. I invite you all to come and hear from Hannah Rosen on March 1st at 11 a.m. Fascinating speaker, actually a friend of mine. I don't necessarily agree with everything she says, but that's not what you do at universities. You invite smart people to talk about important subjects, and she will certainly do that on March 1st. Programs of growing national significance. We've already talked about some of those, and a focus on retention and graduation rates. One of the things that's so exciting for me about our growth is that it's not just coming from our demographics. Our growth is coming in a significant part from the advancements we're making with our junior and senior class. What that graph shows you right there is we're growing in all classes. So yes, more new freshmen because of probably just the demographics of the area, but even greater levels of juniors and seniors because they love the programs here. They're not transferring. They're finishing their degrees. It's all paying off. And maybe our best indicator, a 76% increase in our completion rates for bachelor-seeking students since 2012. Cumulatively, that now makes us the largest USHE increase in total degrees since 2010. A remarkable accomplishment. I want to applaud all of you for making happen. We are also engaged, and today, and there will be, I think, something for you to collect at the back of the room on this. We are rolling out officially our 5 pillars of engagement. We've long talked about engagement, but we now have these very well thought out categories of engagement that structure the way that we move forward, the way that we budget for it, what we prioritize, from internships to community engagement, global and intercultural engagement, research and creative things, and an engaged curriculum across the board. And what we're doing in each of those areas is just astounding. Thousands of students doing internships. We're on the front end of our creative and research works, but beginning to fund those. Numerous new opportunities in global and intercultural, and probably our greatest vehicle is our community engagement with 330 service learning courses, where 12,000 students are giving more than 20 hours of community service, not just service for the sake of service, but service tied to their discipline and to the things they're studying in their coursework. And we're grateful for the leadership of Fred White and his team on that. Well, it's this story of serious, engaged, and inclusive, all aiming towards student success, that is catching the national and international attention. Stories in the Chronicle of Higher Education recently about what UVU is doing. Stories in the Times Higher Education. This is the UK's equivalent of the Chronicle of Higher Education. University Press inviting us to do editorials about the successes we're having with our model of education. And Education Dive, which you might have to question their judgment about executive choices, but I do not question their choice about a statement like this. Schools like Utah Valley University are the future of higher education, where one institution or one system can address the full needs of a city-state workforce with multiple resources for education. Well, we are the future of higher education, and it's been so fun to watch this unfold. If you've been following me, I've been tweeting about our future. Let me just share a few of my favorite tweets from the year if I can. This is me and Tom Holdman at Hogwarts, okay? Taking the windows to Oxford University where it was a big hit, 2,000 impressions. Letting people know about, again, these international articles, 3,000 impressions. The great new focus on student involvement in our athletic events, helping to fill the UCCU Center, 4,000 impressions. The Guardian, another major international piece treating the Holdman windows, calling the Holdman windows some of the greatest stained glass windows made in the last century. 7,000 impressions from that. A certain game that I was fond of, we take a quantum leap forward in impressions, 16,000. Yeah. And then the CNN piece, 17,000 pieces. And then, of course, I was really genuinely deeply moved by the most successful text because it spoke to our students, to their hopes, their dreams, their aspirations. I speak of Chick-fil-A. We've got Oxford. We've got CNN. We've got The Guardian. We've got Chick-fil-A at 20,000 impressions. Well, to the future. As many of you might remember, back in 1982, the Commissioner of Higher Education, Arvo van Alstine, famously made a series of remarkable predictions about what our world would look like in 2018, just 1 year from now. He forecasted that we would take over the Geneva steel site for our expansion, a steel operation that at the time seemed like it would be here forever. He also demonstrated remarkable prescience in noting that UVU would start to challenge an athletic dominance of a certain school to the east. Of course, other things were a little more off base, like the fact that we would have no need of cars or parking because we would be seamlessly transported across the freeway to our classes and offices by an intricate maze of color-coded pneumatic tubes. This still has not happened, and it's not going to. So let's try our own hands at a little futurism, if you will, and let's go big or let's go home. So I want you to think for me for just a minute about what the world might look like here in another 75 years at UVU. Now, my very first prediction is that given the extra sturdy health and ambition of some of our younger leaders in particular, to say nothing of the life-extending practices of science and nutrition that will develop, several of us will still be around in 75 years. And I'm putting my money on at least 3 such individuals. And thanks to the sophisticated advances in computer imaging and forecasting, we can see right before our eyes what the always dashing Jacob Atkin will look like when he finally announces his retirement in our sesquicentennial year. Then there will be our basketball coach, who will finally retire in 2091 with the winningest record in NCAA history, but will only step down to continue his mentoring role deep in outer space. And then finally, there was that youthful star of UVU inclusiveness, Kyle Reyes. Kyle will, in 75 years, just be getting ready for his next 75 years. Kyle Reyes. Okay, so I'm not going to be great at 75-year predictions. I'm going to pull it back, do something a little more plausible. So let's look at the next 25 years. Instead of looking down that road 75 years, we'll look towards our centennial. And what I want to do is ask ourselves, what will UVU look like? What will the world around us look like when we celebrate our centennial in 2041? The first point I want to make is that the path to 2041 starts right here in 2017. In the coming year, we are faced, as we always are, with opportunities to seize and challenges to address in carrying out our mission. It was like that in 1941. It was like that when I got here in 2009. It's like that today. My guess is it'll be like that in 2041. It's not cause for panic or concern. It's just cause for get up and go. And so we'll get up and go, and we'll start with our legislative requests. As the legislative session is already underway, I want to tell you that along with my fellow presidents, we have put as our top legislative priority a push for a 3% merit-based compensation adjustment for our employees, $40.6 million of which would come to UVU. Now, the only way that we have achieved all of the successes that I've been talking about today is through you, the staff and faculty who give your all to this institution and to our promising students. I speak endlessly these days about student success being the core of our core. But I know that the fulfillment of that mission is unequivocally predicated on the dedication, creativity, and compassion and sense of expectation conveyed by the employees of this university. Our next priority is to push for growth funding. I am gratified that the Council of Presidents and Commissioners Office has joined in full support of this as the system's #2 priority, since not all institutions are growing right now as fast as UVU is. Look briefly at a couple of images that capture this neatly. First, we see what is happening in K-12 system over the last 17 years. Half the growth in the state K-12 is happening in our service region of Utah, Summit and Wasatch counties. Now, not all of those students are coming our way, but most of them are. To fail to give UVU growth money, especially in years where we have grown over 1,000 students like we have this year, is like giving us a budget cut. I've said before and will continue to say whenever it's necessary, our mission is now receiving international and national acclaim for what it is accomplishing so marvelously and efficiently. Yet we must be funded for that mission, or we will be forced to reconstitute that mission, which would be a major blow to thousands and thousands of our most vulnerable students. We're also seeking support for starting and expanding more programs where there is a clear market demand and workforce need. Now, some of you might ask, if you get growth money, why do you need money for market demand programs? Well, as we've already established, the world around us is changing, and changing dramatically. The exploding need for students trained in various areas of science, technology, and healthcare, to name just a few, is almost impossible to keep up with right now. But as the ultimate engaged learning institution in the state, we must do all we can to sustain programs that will fill these critically needed pipelines. Furthermore, these programs, by their very nature, come with added costs for specialized space, equipment, and faculty. Consequently, we very much need money beyond that awarded to us for growth, which only covers our most basic educational costs for each new student. And even then, growth funding requires supplement by tuition. On the appropriation side, our final request is for one-time monies in support of our dramatic increase in retention and graduation. As you have seen, our growth is coming for reasons that go well beyond our demographics. We're growing rapidly because we're making a concerted effort to keep students in school and move them through to graduation. Doing so is a huge boon to our region and creates life-changing consequences for all of those students. But here again, this requires money. We need it for additional outreach, mentoring, counseling, monitoring, all the things that we have learned to do that have had the impact that we have seen. And those, again, go beyond the most minimal basic costs funded by growth money. We will also be presenting, as I've noted, our case for a new business building. Now, the fact of the matter is that this year we will be receiving the second tranche of our funding for the Noorda Performing Arts Center, as established last legislative session. So our chances this year for support for this building are very slim. But the slimness of our chances does not diminish the enormity of our need. There's no pun there for norm either, enormity of our need. The Woodbury School of Business is the largest business school in the state and growing. The building is currently housed in one of the oldest buildings on campus, and it is clearly hitting its limit in terms of accommodating interested students and providing the kind of dynamic private sector engagement space required for a cutting-edge business program today. We face similar pressures for this, similar pressures on campus administrative space. So we will tie into this building a new suite of administrative spaces with an attractive new lobby where the main entrance to campus now stands. This will create a spectacular new front of campus, completing, if you will, this more contemporary ring of new buildings that surround this campus, starting with the science building here on the west, the running to the classroom building on the north, moving along the library and student life and wellness center to the new performing arts building on the east, and culminating then in this gleaming new southern exposure for us with this business building. So, slim chances notwithstanding, we will vigorously support for this building this year. Finally, we are asking for support for a pedestrian bridge to connect our east and west campuses. I've already explained the reasons why this is so critical. Now, let's dream a little. Maybe something like this. Or this. Or this. And some ideas by some of our own faculty. Now, given what I know about the state coffers this year, we'll be lucky if it's concrete and chain link fence. But it's fun to dream. I do have to say that the sober reality this year is that and it affects all of our requests, is that while the state economy is doing quite well and employment is quite low, the state general fund has remained relatively flat. This is something of a historical anomaly, and I hope it's something legislators will urgently address, since the negative implications for higher education funding are very significant. Other major initiatives you will see in the coming year beyond the legislative session. You may have been wondering about this out front in campus. Well, as it pertains to that need for a spruced up look for the front porch of campus, well, we're not waiting for the full-scale project of the business building. As perhaps something that might be considered the opening act of our move toward our centennial, we are replacing the long-lived front retaining wall, complete with a very weathered-looking Wolverine and lettering dating back to our community college days, and we will replace that wall with something that will look more like this. And progress is underway. In 2017, we will also welcome our first set of cohorts in our graduate programs, 5 fantastic new master's degrees. We will also witness the realignment of 2 of our colleges, whereby our health-related programs from the College of Science will move over to the College of Aviation and Public Services, becoming the new College of Health and Public Services. This will create a better fit of programs under each roof, leading to new energy and expansion for those affected programs. You will likely see a very visible partnership emerge between UVU and the National Cybersecurity Alliance. This comes at a time when cybersecurity issues threaten the very foundations of economic stability and democratic order here in America and all across the world. UVU's national leadership on these issues is already taking root, and we have not yet graduated our first master's degree student in this area. I predict this year will be the year we will actually finalize a purchase of property suitable for a significant university presence in Payson or the south part of the county. And before the semester is over, we will actually cut the ribbon on 13,000 square feet of tailored UVU space at Thanksgiving Point, with options to expand rapidly into the future. As for the now already famous Roots of Knowledge windows, you will soon start to see a flood of wonderful physical enhancements like outside lighting, new flooring to catch the dazzling array of lights at different times of day. You'll also see development of a terrific set of learning tools and events, everything from a new and improved website to an application with detailed information about every nook and cranny, to glossy publications including a book and a rich constellation of lectures, capstone courses, and seminar projects. Some of this is already underway. I invite you and your students to actively participate in and contribute to the intellectual community that is developing around these windows. And to remind us why we do everything we do on this campus and must do it well, I predict you will see the institution issue a major statement on the meaning of student success and its singular importance in the definition and measurement of our mission. A draft is on the way for broader levels of input. Well, as you can see, this is not an institution resting on its 75th laurels. There is more work and opportunity here than ever. And all I've done is touch on just a few of the highlights only here in our first year in our march towards our 100th anniversary. So what else lies ahead as we look to 2041? As for buildings, we have already given you a pretty clear vision of what the campus will look like in terms of layout on the two main anchor campuses. Of course, what I've mentioned is just what the buildings, where they'll be laid out, but not the nature of those buildings. So let me hazard this. By then, new buildings will be laden with artificial intelligence and electronic personality. They will collect and process data from various sensors, enabling them to greet you by name, have your favorite music playing in your office, and tell you when you've been sitting too long for good health. They will be made from translucent concrete plastics that will transport building design and possibilities to realms currently unimagined in terms of size and shape. Along with airplanes and cars, they will be formed out of shape-changing materials that will be able to likely repair themselves. And for those bigger jobs that still require some form of human activity, you will see men and women in super-strength exoskeletons, multiplying many times natural human physical and processing power. Back to the Future incorrectly predicted that by October 21st, 2015, we would be seeing flying cars. Give it another 25 years. I think it's not too far-fetched to believe that by then our students will be coming to campus in something akin to a scene from Meet the Robinsons. And only then will some come in self-driving, and only that will come after self-driving cars and trucks that are already on their way. Somewhere in that process, we'll also see a linear induction bike lane that will surround and intersect our campus, effectively using plates and linear induction motors to create a kind of conveyor belt for bikes going uphill and down. Between contact lenses capable of transmitting everything you see and quantum leaps in brainwave analyzers, visual feeding and telepathic control of machines will be commonplace. And student lab spaces will go from a room of Macs and microscopes to something from a scene here in Big Hero 6. Just continuing my predictions through Pixar motif here. And depending on what kinds of decisions we make over the years ahead, Utah Valley inversion will be eradicated and greenhouse emissions will substantially be eradicated or reduced as a result of sweeping new uses of renewable energy sources. It's either all that or a total economic, social, and environmental collapse where we abandon educational degrees and telepathy for spears, leather skirts, and continual bloodletting, a la a scene from Defiance. Pixar didn't have anything for me on this, so. Of course, I'm an optimist, and the more I see more of the former in our life than the latter. But as for me, those buildings and the future of technology, as exciting as they are probably the least exciting thing about our future. The true excitement will be, as it always has been and always will be, all of the 65,000 students that will be here in 2041. But it won't just be our raw size that will be significant. We will have more students. In fact, we'll have the most students in the state walking out our doors with associate's or bachelor's degrees, producing on average 10,000 degrees a year, with completion rates 2.5 times what we're achieving right now. And those degrees will be earned by the most diverse student body in the state when you take into account ethnicity, socioeconomic status, and the number of first-generation college goers. And out of that wonderfully rich mix of students, we will see by 2041 our first Rhodes Scholar from UVU, along with a Truman and Marshall Scholar or two and a MacArthur Genius Grant winner. We will see a single year where UVUers will be in graduate programs at Harvard, Stanford, Princeton, and Yale, and in some cases being taught by other UVU grads now on their way to earning tenure at those institutions. Wolverines will be in key leadership positions or managing their own firms on Wall Street, Madison Avenue, and every continent in the world except Antarctica. Even Antarctica is too cold for a Wolverine. Others will perform on Broadway, at the Met, or in the Lincoln Center. Someone will win an Oscar. A Pulitzer Prize will also be awarded. I'm just not sure if the first one will come in fiction, photography, or journalism. By 2041, we will have a dedicated Athletics Hall of Fame, recognizing multiple professional athletes, Olympians, and All-Americans, as well as countless conference championship trophies and, mark my words, several Division I national championships. Classic black and white photos from all our men's and women's sports competing in national tournaments will line the hallways, including our regular and deep runs at that NCAA festival we call March Madness. Our success in soccer will be part of a wave where the whole sport itself comes to compete with football as a national pastime, and our crowds for soccer games will exceed that of almost every other Utah school's football games. Transformed by their exposure to engaged learning and fueled by pride and appreciation, our dynamic and successful alumni base, some of whom will sit on the Forbes list of wealthiest Americans, will increasingly step forward year by year and take our current foundation endowment of roughly $75 million, build up over 75 years, and push it to over $1 billion in 25 years. Through this fund, fully endowed academic chairs will exist in every college and many departments. We will have quadrupled the number of students with substantial scholarship support, and entirely new programs, centers, and institutes will appear on this campus without draining precious and limited tax funds. Speaking of billions, by 2041, at least one of our graduates and perhaps several will have sold a business for more than $1 billion and will make a major 8-figure gift back to the school in return. Count on it. I think it might be Birch Eve. To celebrate this alum, he will likely head to the Valley's first Michelin-starred restaurant, opened by another alum from the UVU culinary program. Dozens, if not hundreds, of pioneering and inventive companies will stand as spin-offs from one of the nation's most dynamic innovation centers, a center co-sponsored and co-managed by UVU and operating right here in the heart of what will be by then the world-famous Silicon Slopes. And this center will be seen as just an extension of the whole institution that will provide on scale outstanding entrepreneurs and engineers, not to mention 10 kinds of technologists needed to support the work of every enterprising engineer so desperately needed in this valley today. 25 years from now, when the nature of the world will only demand more such skills, our institution will be that much more valuable. Our service region and much of our state will be dominated by leadership and service provided by UVU graduates. Cadres of doctors and nurses who got their undergrad at UVU will provide our general health care and specialty services. UVU-trained pilots will be seen as having played a key role in solving the global crisis of pilot shortages. Products of the programs in the McKay Education Building will become staple candidates for the annual Best Teacher in the State Award and sit in principal and superintendent offices from Nebo to North Summit. Public service master's grads will lead local operations in fire, rescue, law enforcement, and social work, to name a few. The lion's share of mayors, city managers, and county commissioners will have a UVU degree on their wall. By 2041, UVU grads will have found their way to state legislative leadership, the governor's mansion, representation in the U.S. Congress, and many key offices in federal government, including senior level service at the State Department, Department of Defense, FBI, national security offices, and the White House itself. Both domestically and internationally, UVU's impact will be delivered by noted experts in practically addressing issues in ethics, conflict resolution, environmental health, interreligious understanding, and services for the deaf. Finally, the measure of our students' success in 2041 will not just be in the form of these students and alumni who will have achieved striking state, national, and international attention. Perhaps even more important will be the hundreds and thousands of alumni who will quietly go about life, building our homes and our highways, repairing our cars and our computers, teaching us music and math, serving on school boards and city councils, defending the guiltless and the guilty, and preparing our taxes and our takeout meals. By doing these things, they will not only make the world we live in more comfortable, prosperous, and just, they will be self-sufficient, providing for themselves and the dependents around them, and a life that is safe and sustainable. And if we have done our job and done it correctly, they will have more than that. They will also be able to soar with a piece of poetry, savor a work of art, recognize great music, learn vicariously through literature, compose a moving letter, counsel a confused friend, organize for collective action, transcend a parochial interest, connect with a broader world, give a persuasive speech, sustain lifelong learning, and reflect deeply on the nature of their own happiness and the direction of their own lives. On that note of happiness, William Wordsworth said of the beginning of the fight for French liberty, "Bliss was it in that dawn to be alive, but to be young was very heaven." Ladies and gentlemen, that is how I feel about UVU and the epoch we are now entering. Would that we were all 10, 15, or 20 years younger in order to participate in and witness the full sweep of marvelous things that I promise you will happen on this campus and in the lives of our students by 2041. Before us rests an enormous and an exhilarating moment. If I may put it so boldly, we face nothing less than the chance to stand as the nation's very best open admissions platform for student success. There is still much to do to make this happen and to ready ourselves for a centennial celebration far grander than anything we've experienced this year. For me, that work has already started, and it is not stopping anytime soon. I trust and hope the same is true for you. Thank you very much.